President Trump has had 2 mayors visit the Oval Office in this presidential term. The first one was Mayor Eric Adams of New York City, April 2025, after the FBI raided his home. And the second was Zohran Mamdani, the newly elected mayor of New York City, who visited today. In his first term, 2016-2020, he had 3 different mayors technically at the White House, but they were there for a big convention kind of thing that was going on. Only Eric Adams of New York and Zohran Mamdani of New York have visited the Oval Office to speak with President Trump in the Oval Office as mayors, which is very interesting that they both happen to be from New York. But today was the day that Zohran Mamdani, you know, the Muslim man from Uganda who ran for mayor in New York City based off of being 180-degree different than President Trump. He ran by dragging President Trump through the mud. He ran by talking about how he was going to fight President Trump at every single turn when it came to ICE, when it came to literally everything humanly possible. And when President Trump was like, hey, yeah, I'll meet with you in the White House if you want to talk this out face to face, Mamdani was like, cool. And so today he went. And I'd like to just show you a little bit of what happened. So this is Mamdani showing up at the airport, leaving the airport today to get in the car to go towards the White House. You can see he's got a whole team of people with him. The people that are around him are, I guess, protection. I don't know exactly what they're supposed to do. I don't really see anything that looks like a security guard or bodyguard there. But as he's walking, there is a question that is asked from him by Charles Downs, confronted Zohran Mamdani and asked him if he condemns his supporters who violently stormed a synagogue last night in New York City, where Mamdani supporters called for Jews to be taken out and killed. I don't know if you guys have seen that, what has happened there, but that did occur last night in New York City. And then Mamdani refused to condemn them. And instead, he said his supporters are focused on the affordability crisis. Don't you think his supporters should care about what was going on at that synagogue and the people that were surrounding it and you know, chanting very hurtful, negative things to the Jewish people in the synagogue, just out of curiosity? So according to Laura Loomer here, she says this is totally unacceptable behavior from an elected official, and the Trump admin needs to show some moral clarity on this issue today when Mamdani is at the White House. She said, we are witnesses of the stages of what will become a program of if leadership isn't exercised immediately. She says pogrom. I don't know what that means, so I can't really go into that. Anyway, but just earlier, Mayor Eric Adams last night posted what happened at the PES synagogue last night was totally unacceptable, no matter your faith or background. This type of protest and vile language should concern us all. When you desecrate one house of worship, you desecrate them all. And then he talks about he'll be visiting Park East Synagogue to stand with the rabbis and everybody there. But that is something that happened yesterday. Here's just a little bit of visual from outside of the synagogue during the protests and everything like that. But now you have Zohran Mamdani in DC, headed to meet with President Trump, right? And so he gets there. And I will say, I personally, I'm sure you guys have seen this as well, you may feel the same way. It did not go exactly how I would have expected, given the level of contempt that Zohran Mamdani spewed toward President Trump and, you know, Republicans and conservatives in general during his entire campaign process. I expected him to go in there like the bulldog he claimed to be and really, you know, try to stick it to President Trump and for President Trump to do his thing and be like, listen, this is my country. I am here to make sure that the citizens of this country are taken care of correctly and whatever else. And that's not what happened. I want to just play you a couple clips of exactly what transpired in the White House today. And then we're going to discuss kind of what the fuck. Like, and that's the nicest way I have to say it. So let's take a listen. Ready? Maybe.
Well, thank you very much. We've just had a great meeting, a really good, very productive meeting. We have one thing in common. We want this city of ours that we love to do very well. And I wanted to congratulate the mayor. He really ran an incredible race against a lot of smart people, starting with the early primaries against some very tough people, very smart people. And he beat him easily. And I congratulated him. And we talked about some things in very strong common, like housing and getting housing built and food and prices, and the price of oil is coming way down.
Okay. So he says they have one thing in common. That's, making things great for the people of New York City, which I agree with. That's great, whatever. And then it kind of, to me, I don't like the way Zaron Mamdani just stands there and kind of looks at him like that. But then in my opinion, it kind of goes, I want to say off the rails is the way I want to phrase this. Here is another little portion of it that I want you guys to take a listen to. Let's turn the volume back up and hit the play button.
Just a minute. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. I appreciate it. Please.
I appreciated the meeting with the president, and as he said, it was a productive meeting focused on a place of shared admiration and love, which is New York City, and the need to deliver affordability to New Yorkers, the 8.5 million people who call our city their home, who are struggling to afford life in the most expensive city in the United States of America. We spoke about rent, we spoke about groceries, we spoke about utilities, we spoke about the different ways in which people are being pushed out, and I appreciated the time with the president. I appreciated the conversation. I look forward to working together to deliver that affordability for New Yorkers.
Thank you very much.
Listen, here's my question. The president has nothing to do with how expensive the city of New York is. That is all on the people who run the city of New York. So if you, as the elected mayor, have a problem with how expensive New York City is, you should be looking at the people who ran it before you, the people who are currently in charge of things that are going on. Look at your governor. Look at Kathy Hochul. Look at the people that are in the New York Assembly, New York State Assembly, and the legislature. Look at those people. Look at whoever's running the town halls, the city halls, the whatever else. This is not on the president. If your housing is too expensive, that's on you and allowing it to be that way. I know the phrase, the market never lies. If you have it priced for $2 million, maybe it's because people will pay $2 million. If they won't, bring down the prices. Like, that's on the people in New York City. President Trump has nothing to do with the cost of living in New York City. Yet Mamdani ran his whole campaign on how, because President Trump hasn't brought the prices down, is why people in New York City are having to move out and why they can't afford to live there. You yourself said New York City is the most expensive one in the country. That's on you, boo-boo. That is not on the president. So I have issues with that, obviously. I don't like the way he phrased those things, and I don't like that President Trump just kind of sat there and let him say it that way. I didn't like that either. Gunther Eagleman posted this video and he said, breaking, Mamdani did not turn up the volume, and he has officially done the thing leftists can't stand. He bent the knee, which after watching these videos of the two of them together, I don't want to say that Mamdani bent the knee, but he definitely didn't go in there, like I said, like a bulldog. But President Trump also was not the Trump that I expected to go up against Mamdani. But there may be reasons why. So let's do a little bit more here, because that's not the only one. So Benny Johnson posted this one up with a reporter who asked a question of Mamdani. Now, if you look at the left, they're saying that Mamdani really stuck it to President Trump with this one. And of course, if you look at anybody else with a brain, they go, not really, no, he didn't. But it is interesting the way that President Trump, if you watch the body language, I have a tendency to do this, and I know I do this, and I don't mean to do this, but I have a tendency to do this with people when I'm like, okay, you're saying too much. I have a tendency to grab their arm or touch them, just some little touch as a way of saying, okay, that's good, shush, whatever. And it's not on purpose. It's just sometimes I myself am very cognizant of the fact that I do it. I keep talking when I should have stopped already, right? Like now. So I want you to listen to this and then notice what President Trump does with Mamdani.
Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?
I've spoken about...
That's okay. You can just say
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
That's easier. It's easier than explaining it. I don't mind.
And Charlotte, I wanted to ask you also about this.
Okay, so she asked, if he still thinks President Trump's a fascist, and instead of being able to go into the reasons why he thinks he is, because he did say yes, if you heard it, he's like, yes. Instead of being able to go into the reasons, in my opinion, President Trump was like telling him, we're not doing all that right here, right now. You can say yes, but we're not going into a full-on reason why you think so, because I think that maybe he didn't want him to say anything negative that would give the reporters something else to kind of pounce on. And then this lady starts talking about Ukraine and stuff like that, which I'm like, that's not really what you're there for, so whatever. But I noticed the arm, the touch, and I was like, oh, I've enacted that myself. So that to me said that he was like, all right, stop talking. You've done too much. But But then you have this one. This is the one about the ICE and things like that, which is what we talked about. Because Mamdani said from day one that basically Trump would have to go over his dead body in order to allow ICE in, and that he was going to fight him tooth and nail every step of the way and go against federal law, basically. And he was not going to let ICE agents come in and deport any illegal immigrants out of New York City. Okay, now listen to this here, because tunes, they are a-changin', and we'll discuss why that may be in just a moment. Listen.
You both have differences when it comes to ICE agents in New York City. Mr. Mamdani, you call ICE a rogue government entity. I wonder how you reconcile your differences on both of those issues.
Well, I think we're going to work them out. And I think that if we have known murderers and known drug dealers and some very bad people, we want to get them out. And the mayor wants to have peace. We discussed this at great length, actually, maybe more than anything else. He wants to have a safe New York. Ultimately, a safe New York is going to be a great New York. If it's not safe, no matter how well we do with pricing and with anything else, we can talk about anything you want. If you don't have safe streets, it's not going to be a success. So we're going to work together. We're going to make sure that if there are horrible people there, we want to get them out. I think he wants to get them out, maybe more than I do. So we'll work together. We discussed it at great length. Yeah.
Okay. He said we a whole lot. Like he and Mamdani are going to run New York City together, which I noticed how often he said we. And I'm like, wait, we are going to work on the prices. We are going to keep the streets safe. We are going to do this. And I'm like, you don't often use the word we when discussing things in other states or cities with, governors or mayors anywhere else. So it's very interesting using the word we when it comes to New York City. On top of that, he says that Mamdani wants the streets of New York to be safe. Bullshit, he does. He's the same one who wants to, once again, you guys know, say it with me, defund the police. He's the same one who wants to let criminals out of jail. He's the same one that does not want to send police officers to domestic violence calls. He does not want safe streets of New York City. Or is that just all a lie leading up to now that he has won the mayoral election campaign? And by one, I mean was, placed in there, because he went from a 1% chance in frozen hell to winning, according to President Trump, almost by a landslide. And he did a great job at campaigning. It's like we're in the middle of a twilight zone right now. And I'm very confused on what is happening there. Until you step back and you think about the fact that President Trump has been playing basically 4D chess since day one. And you have to ask yourself if this is another move of 4D chess. All right. So Laura Loomer, after all this is said and done, she posts, why are we chumming it up with a man who campaigned with a 1993 World Trade Center bombing co-conspirator? How come you guys didn't call him out for his support of Islamic terrorism? We are losing our country to an Islamic takeover. Nobody wants to address this seriously, which we have talked about in extensive whatever here. Like we talk about this all the time. Then I saw this post here Glenn Beck had out. Okay. And actually, let me look this up, because Ann Vandersteel posted something that I wanted to read to you guys that made me think, like in regards to the whole meeting with Trump today and Mamdani. And she posted, if I can find it here, she says, this is what she says. Today's landmark White House visit brings with it the obvious question. Was Mamdani a Manchurian candidate for Trump? All right. We already know Trump plays, she says, 6D chess with Democrats, but this is straight up wizard level. And then she says the evidence. Weeks ago, Trump called him a 100% lunatic communist and threatened to arrest him. You guys remember that? Trump had nothing good to say about Mamdani. Trump then gave his support to Cuomo, of all people, not Sliwa, the Republican that was running, but he gave his support to Cuomo, the Democrat that was running, or I think he was running as an independent, against Zohran Mamdani, okay? Which then, in essence, if you don't like Trump, you're not going to want to vote for the person that he is kind of sort of giving his 2 thumbs up to, and it's going to push you over to Zohran Mamdani. Think that through. Then, same time, Trump endorses Cuomo just to split the anti-Mamdani vote. Like I said, election night, Mamdani wins. We got to air quote it every single time. Coincidence? Or is it the ultimate long game? Remember, Eric Adams made the exact same pilgrimage, but look how that turned out. And I told you, he went there in April of this year, okay? Democrats blackballed him, indicted him, and tanked his re-election bid. None of this makes sense unless this heel turn script was written months ago. In any case, popcorn's in the microwave. This one's going to be delicious. I don't even know where to go with this one at this point, because you had a man who ran his entire campaign on contempt for Trump, like I said. And now he's standing in the White House next to said Trump, President Trump, grinning like he just got the golden ticket out of the Willy Wonka chocolate bar kind of thing, right? Or the Wonka chocolate bar. And he is agreeing that he's going to work with Trump and everything else. And Trump is treating Mamdani like his long lost kid, patting him on the arm and smiling at him and talking how they're going to work together for New York City. And it's all very confusing to me because none of it adds up to what was happening just days and weeks ago. So I'm very interested to see where everything goes from there. Then, okay, let's get back to, so Glenn Beck actually posted up, he had a video and he said that, he's exposing the Islamic takeover in America, which we've talked about numerous times between Texas and New York City and Dearborn, Michigan and other places. It's getting a little buck wild out there, right? So according to Glenn Beck, he says America now has full-time Islamic schools, over 300 nationwide, many of them in Texas, which we did discuss in the little compound that they have there. American kids spend more time memorizing the Quran. That part I'm not 100% sure on. I'm sure he did some research there, but I don't know. My child has never seen it, read it, knows anything about it. It says these schools receive federal tax dollars to operate. Example, Good Tree Academy Quran first curriculum is segregated classes. And then in Texas, it says in the last 24 months, Dallas-Fort Worth has 200 Islamic centers. Houston has another 100 plus Islamic centers. The Muslim population ranges from 313,000 to 420,000. This is Texas alone. Texas has Muslim-only communities, which we've talked about, and Texas has Sharia law-compliant financing institutions, which we've also talked about. And I showed you yesterday how Governor Greg Abbott was like, hey, listen, we're making the CAIR and the Muslim Brotherhood terrorists. We're going to label them known terrorists, and they're not going to sell land to them. And these are still the same ones that backed Mamdani to get to where he is for New York mayor. They funneled money into him. There's a lot of stuff here that is just, I don't know what the end game here is on Trump's part, because chumming up to Mamdani kind of feels a little slap in the face, to New Yorkers who remember 9/11, to Americans in general who remember 9/11. It did not give me warm and fuzzies. And as a president, I think he's doing a great job. This little blip in the whole thing has me scratching my head just a little bit, as I'm sure it does for a lot of people. Questioning it doesn't mean you don't trust the president or dislike the president or bad mouthing the president, but we have the right and we should have the ability to go, make it make sense though. Like, where exactly are we going with this? We can see what's happening with the takeover everywhere. Let's go to this. I have this video here from, where is this? This is in Dearborn, Michigan. And the girl, she moved here from the UK. I'm not going to play the whole thing. This is Nick Shirley, so I don't want to play his video, but if you guys want to see it, he's over on YouTube. You can go check it out. But he's interviewing this woman in Dearborn, Michigan. And he asked her, he said, why is Islam becoming so popular in the US? And she said, birth rates. They outbreed us in every way, which is true, because what I have learned and heard when it comes to these Islamic communities is that the men will have a wife, but they will also have all these extra side wives, pieces, whatever, knock all of them up and to repopulate, because that is what's important, is to populate the areas that they are going into with more Islamic Muslim children, right? So they're repopulating like crazy, more so than Americans are. And then they are getting government funding for the things that they are doing, because you have a single mother who's not married now raising a child who can then go out and get benefits. It's this whole, the way it's all set up is intricate as all get out, right? So then he says, what did you see in the UK? And her answer is exactly what I have seen from videos in the UK, whether it's on news from the UK, whether it's in other YouTube videos, whether it's on like news publications, whatever. He said, what did you see in the UK? And she says, I see white guilt, colonizer guilt, and the government not standing up for people that have been there for generations. And you guys have seen it too, where and it's liberals. It's not normal white people or whatever. It's liberal. A lot of times white liberal women are going to be the downfall of the United States of America. They are convinced that they should feel bad for things that happened in the past. And then they try to atone for it by turning a blind eye to what's going on right now, which is why our country is turning into what it's turning into. It's because of these people who are being persuaded or guilted or conditioned to think that if you say no, you don't want an Islamic takeover, or no, you don't want trans takeover, or no, you don't whatever else, that you are in the wrong and there's something wrong with you and that you should feel bad for it. And so now you have all these liberal women and men running around ruining our country so that they don't feel guilty about something. Okay? So then he asked her, if we don't change, will the U.S. fall? And she says, yes, today's men are extremely weak and they need to fight for their country. The whole point in everything that's been going on the last couple of years is to weaken our men and to, I don't know if it's to butch up the women or to turn the women against the men or what's going on here. But when you have people convincing men that they're gay, so they're not going to procreate with women, you have women they're convincing women that they should be men and men that they should be women. They're not going to procreate because they're fucking up all their junk with all the drugs they're taking and the surgery that they're having and whatever else. When you're convincing women that they can be independent boss babes, that they don't need a man for anything, there goes, your birth rate there because they're not popping out babies, they're not getting married. When you convince men that they should be men that go their own, what was it called? MTGOW, men that go their own way, or men go their own way, whatever it's called, MGTOW, whatever. When you have men like that thinking that they are better than women and therefore don't want to marry them or treat them with respect, you have another chance of not having babies. Everything is designed to take us down from the inside by our own actions, 100% our own actions. I don't remember who said it, but they said the US won't fall from a bomb. It's going to be because of, falling from the inside. Like we're going to basically kill ourselves off and deteriorate just because of all of the infighting and because of all of the non-procreating and the takeover from everybody else. He asked her, he said, how long does the US have until it becomes a bigger issue for Christians? And she goes, 3 to 5 years, probably. I left the UK for this exact reason. Now, obviously, she can't give you a legit number. It's almost impossible. You could say 6 months. If you look at the way Dearborn, Michigan is going, that shit is going to seep out into surrounding areas and it's going to overtake like the virus that it is. It could take 6 months. It could take 5 years. It could take 20, but it all depends on how much we stop it or we fight back or we counteract it by doing the things that we as American citizens should be doing. Getting married, making babies, like procreating, these are things that you should do. Have the family. Anyway. And then he says, how do women feel in Islamic towns? And she says, I feel extremely unsafe. I feel unsafe here in Dearborn, Michigan. Women feel unsafe in a lot of places because of a lot of things that have happened in the past and the things that we have seen happen on the news and the stories that we've heard from other women and the way we've heard men talk. It's a legit fear, but I would be more likely to walk through the streets of Atlanta butt naked and not worry about it or worry less about it than to walk through Dearborn, Michigan, just the way I am right now. I would be petrified because I know what the Islamic people, the Islamic religion will allow or will turn a blind eye to. I feel like I would be more unsafe there than I would be in most non-Islamic cities across the US. That's my personal feelings and thoughts on that. Every woman is going to feel different, obviously. But then this last video, I was tagged in this on X by, I don't remember who tagged me in this, and I do apologize. I think it's Huggin Muggin. I can't remember the name or how it's phrased on there. But this other one I thought was absolutely crazy. If I can pull up the right link. So this lady is sitting in her car, which is a great place to record videos if you ask me. And this is what she has to say. She says, what's crazy to me is that there are Muslims immigrating and seeking asylum in our country when there are 56 other Muslim countries out there they could easily go to and not have to change a damn thing. They are choosing to come to the West that is founded on Christian values. Also, what is weird is that most of them coming here are not women and children, but males who are of military age and shouting death to America in Dearborn, Michigan, and other places. It has always been and will always be about conquering the West, which is 100% true. They come here, even though we are a Christian country, they come here and expect us to assimilate to what they are in their religion, as opposed to if you want to be where your religion is accepted, why did you pick the United States of America? Why don't you go to other countries where your religion is already in place? And it's because it is about conquering, not about assimilating. It's not about moving someplace different because you're tired of where you are. It is literally about trying to take over every country on this planet so that Islam rules. That is the entire point behind their religion, is to take over everything, and that people who do not agree with it or not on board with it are either eradicated or, what's the word? Transformed. No, eradicated, or when you have to switch your religion in order to basically stay alive, whatever that word's called. That's the whole point behind all of it. So knowing that that is what is behind everything, and then watching Mamdani and President Trump be kind of chummy, it gives me a sense of ick that I was not expecting. I fully was expecting to be like, bitch, told you so. Trump put you in your place. And that was not what we got today. I think the American citizens were let down by how this went. Now let's look at it from the flip side, because that's what we do over here. You'll try to look at it from every single angle. Here I have been talking through the whole entire election process and everything else about how we need Democrats and Republicans to work together. If we could work together, then we could fix things. But because we're constantly fighting, it makes it almost impossible to get anywhere. You take one step forward, 15 steps back, which is not really the Paula Abdul song, but you know what I'm talking about. Now the video is playing in my head, but it's that kind of sense. But if you could work together, maybe you could get more steps forward. So in theory, we should look at this meeting between Zohran Mamdani and President Trump in the Oval Office at the White House as a couple steps forward that could help the city of New York. It's very hard to look at it that way, given who the man is, who his ties are with, what he represents as a whole, what he has promised the city of New York, and what he is trying to do behind the scenes by getting the people of New York to give him as much money as possible for 50 days when he doesn't need it, and then trying to insert a Palestinian Islamic theology woman who's only been in the US for a year into the New York State Assembly so that he has somebody inside on the legislature so he can push through whatever it is he's trying to push through. I'm not a fan of any of it. That's just me. I'm entitled to my opinions, as are y'all, and we don't have to agree, but I have a feeling we do, because this is a very big deal. And for it to be downplayed that, you know, oh, they had a good meeting in the White House. I don't like it. It's not a good meeting to me. It felt forced, right? And a little fake it till you make it kind of situation. But again, the way Trump grabbed his arm during the whole fascist comment makes me wonder what is really going on in the background. Because we were not privy to the whole meeting. We were only privy to after he let the reporters come in, the White House press, whatever, come in and ask their questions. We don't know what actually happened behind those closed doors. Were there threats? Were there promises? Were there deals made? We won't know until January 1st, 2026, when Mamdani takes office and starts implementing or not implementing the things that he ran his entire campaign on. So he's either going to do the things he said and ruin the city of New York and piss off the entire state and country, or he's not going to do the things he said and piss off the entire city of New York, which would then possibly ruin itself out of anger, like, you know, a Minneapolis situation or places in California that have a tendency to burn their own cities to the ground for unknown effing reasons. What is the win here? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Where is the win? Anyway, love your thoughts. Gonna keep an eye on everything that's going on. Tomorrow, we need to have a much bigger discussion on another invasion that's not Islamic, but it is from another country, and it's taking over and it's costing taxpayers millions of dollars. So we will talk about that tomorrow. I love you all immensely. I hope you are having a great day, and I'll see you then. Okay.